Trifolium pratense. Nickname for this plant is cotton candy. This is part 1, and in part 2, I'll be sharing a mnemonic or memory technique to help you commit to memory the most distinguishing characteristics of this plant for identifying purposes. Be sure to watch all of part 1 so that part 2 is more understandable. This is a weedy plant. It has an erect flowering stem with one flower head atop each stem. It grows 1/2 to about 2 feet tall. It does some branching occasionally, and it usually forms in large clumps. The color of the flower gives away the genesis of the nickname cotton candy, because the common name for this plant is red clover, but the common name is misleading because the flowers are never red. It can even be dangerous because there is a clover which is truly red, but its leaves are toxic when eaten. But the true red clover leaves can be used for tea. The cotton candy clover here we see here typically has pinkish to purplish flowers. They can sometimes be almost white. They're roundish, oval shaped. As you can see, the leaves are oblong oval. They can even be more along an oval shape as well. What's also one unique identifying characteristic of this particular clover are the leaflets, which develop at the base of each flower head. Each of these flower heads, by the way, are composed of approximately 20 to 200 individual florets, which cause or which develop this dense flower cluster. Now, the base of each of these flower heads are anywhere between 1 and 3 leaflets. This picture shows us how some of these flower heads are starting to turn brown. For edibility purposes, you will want to avoid any flower heads or leaves which appear to be unhealthy. Details of that are explained on the fact sheet at survivalplantsmemorycourse.com. This picture shows us how some of the stems, here we see that the stems are somewhat pubescent or hairy. Now, the flower heads can be between 1/2 to 1.5 inches in length and about 1 inch wide. The flowers have a mild honey-like fragrance. Notice how the leaves here, again in previous lessons we've gone over this, but for the sake of this particular plant, let me go over it again quickly. What we see here is a complete leaf with 3 individual leaflets. Together, it is referred to as a compound leaf, compound many parts. This is an entire leaf, one leaf, with a long leaf stem. Further down the plant, these leaf stems are longer. As we go up the plant, the leaf stems become short. Now each leaf has 3 leaflets, and this is what gives the or is an indication of the traditional clover leaf, 3 individual leaflets. The leaflets have veins which are very evidently green, or the veins are very obvious. They are striking. They are very evident within the leaflets. Here we see that the leaflets, and we'll see in future slides actual pictures of this V shape in the leaflet, which is technically referred to as a chevron shape. This chevron can be white or light green. There's a lot to go through here on this plant, or here on this slide. Let's see what else. This is the calyx. The calyx are at the base, or actually cradle the petals, as we see here. The floret, each individual floret, which makes up the flower head. Now, the calyx of each floret is composed of 5 needle-like teeth. There are hairs between the teeth, and the entire calyx itself can be slightly pubescent or hairy. What's common with each, or characteristic with each calyx, is that one of the teeth will be noticeably taller than the other 4. This calyx has gone to seeding. This is the same calyx, but it is gone from the flowering stage to the seeding stage here. Notice again the leaflets which subset the flower head, which is characteristic of this particular species of clover. Ignore this root system. The root system is fibrous, but this particular painting leaves out the taproot. And lastly, for this slide, it illustrates for us a good picture of an individual floret, where there are 5 petals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 4 shorter petals which are narrow, but the upper petal is slightly longer than these lower 4 petals. And again, as you could see, the petals are reddish purple or pinkish in color, almost white. This illustration shows us the taproot can be fibrous. Now the leaflets can either be pubescent or sparsely hairy on both sides, the top and the bottom surface. You will sometimes find them being pubescent just on the bottom surface. The leaflets are slightly toothed. This flower head is more of a purplish color, where, if you can remember, resembles the color of cotton candy as well. The chevrons I was referring to, the V shape, and the leaflets, they do not always appear, but usually you will find them oblong, oval, you can see the minute teeth here on this petal, especially on this side here. It's very tiny teeth. Again, notice the chevrons, the V shape, the sparsely hairy flowering stem, erect, mild honey-like fragrance of the flowers, reddish, purplish, pinkish, like cotton candy. This is the close-up. You can see the petals inside, with this 5th petal being slightly longer or taller than the 4 petals inside, magnified. More of the purplish color. Chevrons on the top surface, not on the bottom surface. compound leaf, 3 leaflets, characteristic of the 3-leaf clover. 4-leaf clovers are more rare. Now, this picture shows us again the sparsely hairy stems. And there is an appendage, which in botany is referred to as a stipule, that grows at the base of each leaf. Remember the compound leaf at the base of the leaf stalk will grow this extra appendage or growth. There are 2, they're leaf-like, and there's 1 on each side of the compound leaf stem. This we have a picture of the seeds. They are tiny, and there are about 2 seeds within each seed pod. The calyxes, which with the 5 needle-like teeth, which do turn brown that I was showing you in an earlier slide, contains these seeds, and there are about 2, or there are 2. 1 or 2, I should say, in each seed pod. They, as you see, are brownish to yellow. They're heart-shaped or kidney-shaped. This is another illustration of the appendages. In part 2, the mnemonic, these chevrons or V-shapes represent something specific, which are the birds, the mouth of the birds, to be perfectly honest with you. I'll just give you a leak here in pertaining to part 2. And when the birds digest the cotton candy, when you feed the cotton candy to the birds, the cotton candy will pass through the intestines of the birds, and all the doo-doo will pile up here. That is what represents the growths or the appendages. The leaves are alternating on this plant. They are also edible, along with the flowers, the roots, and the seeds. This has been part 1, and in part 2 I'll be sharing a mnemonic or memory technique to help you commit to memory the most distinguishing characteristics of this plant for identifying purposes.